This time on Movie Mash, I will geek out on my favourite Disney Renaissance scenes and use them as inspiration to create a hypothetical new Disney movie. You're welcome.
Okay.
What is a Disney Renaissance film? Wiki says, the Disney Renaissance was the period from 1989 to 1999, during which Walt Disney Feature Animation returned to producing critically and commercially successful animated films that were mostly musical adaptations of well-known stories. Today, I'm focusing on the following.
Sick of swimming, ready to stand. There must be more than this provincial love.
Ain't no passing craze.
I can go the distance to defeat the Hun.
If I want to write a hypothetical Disney Renaissance movie, I need some semblance of a story. That's why I will focus on the major turning points, the 5 key beats. These are the major plot points, the skeleton of the body, the pillars of the building, all to hang the rest of the story on. Without these integral set pieces working in unison, well, the story will probably suck. First up is... the inciting incident is the catalyst for the story. It happens to the protagonist, something to disrupt their life or call them into action. In Hercules, baby Herc is kidnapped from Godworld, taken to the human world, and forced to become like the rest of us. That's a definite disruption. The inciting incident should also hint at the protagonist's want and need. In The Little Mermaid, the inciting incident comes as a warning, one Ariel will ignore.
Then the seagull came, and it was this is this, and that is that. And...
Seagull?
Her father discovers she's been to the surface and forbids her from doing it again.
You'll obey my rule.
But if you would just listen.
Not another word.
What I like about this scene is it shows how Ariel needs to be understood. But she won't be, not by her father, not yet. So of course she wants to be part of the human world because she doesn't feel part of the world she's in now.
Love to explore that shore above all.
It helps us understand her plan moving forward. Keep her interest in the world above hidden from her father, and still go to the surface. How can you externalize your protagonist's want and need? What form does your inciting incident come in? A warning, invitation, opportunity, challenge? In The Lion King, the inciting incident comes as a warning,
An elephant graveyard is no place for a young prince. Oops.
but a trick one.
Dear, I've said too much.
Scar wants to put Simba in danger, knowing Simba will not be able to resist the temptation. What is so remarkable about the writing is it touches on the concept of bravery,
Only the bravest lions go there.
Well, I'm brave.
which becomes a recurring theme and a lesson Simba must learn. What does true bravery look like? How can you include theme in your inciting incident? The inciting incident can also pick at the protagonist's wound. In Mulan, the movie's setup is the protagonist trying and failing to earn honor for her family in the only way she can as a woman.
But you will never bring your family honor.
The inciting incident is when Mulan's father is called to war. Mulan tries to stop this from happening but is hit right in the feels when her father says this.
You dishonor me.
Oof, it is Mulan's wound slapping her right in the face. How can you pick at the protagonist's wound in the inciting incident, Now, Beauty and the Beast breaks the rules. The inciting incident happens not to Belle, but to her father. He and his horse are set upon by wolves. They escape, only to come across the castle. Whatever. It is an indirect way to force Belle to take action later on. This is why I think it is the weakest inciting incident out of all of these movies. For my mash, I will take inspiration from what I think is the strongest inciting incident.
Do you think I want to see my youngest daughter snared by some fish eater's hook?
I'm 16 years old.
This inciting incident cleverly presents us with curiosity and fear from these characters. Even though they are half fish, this humanization makes us suspend our disbelief and invest in the story. The first act turn is a direct response to the inciting incident. It is the moment that protagonist decides to consciously go after what they want. Ariel ignores her father's warning about going to the surface, and in the first act turn, she saves a human from drowning. Why not? She consciously decides to close the gap between the underwater world and the human world, ignoring any potential consequences of her actions. Her interaction with Eric, it's barely an interaction, he's passed out for pity's sake, makes her desire more time with him and drives the rest of the story. Thank goodness Disney has moved away from this love at first sight nonsense. A whole generation of mostly women were taught to settle for literally the worst. Literally the worst. How does your protagonist decide to go after their want? Hercules too decides to go after his want in the first act turn when he finds out who he is and what he can do to get home. He literally sings about it.
Till I find my hero's welcome right where
His first challenge in achieving this want is convincing Phil to train him to be a hero. Sometimes the first act turn is a change of plan. When Belle runs out of options to save her father, she offers to take his place as a prisoner.
Take me instead.
It is a decisive moment made more heartbreaking by the beast's behaviour.
You didn't even let me say goodbye. I'll never see him again.
How can you dramatise and add weight to your protagonist's change in plan? In The Lion King, the first act turn is humbling for Simba.
You deliberately disobeyed me. And what's worse, you put Nala in danger.
I was just trying to be brave like you.
He learns from his father what it means to be brave and what it means to be king. The writers knew they needed to elevate the relationship between father and son in this turning point, so when tragedy strikes, it hurts. It hurts. You can also think about the first act turn as the protagonist leaving the ordinary world and stepping into the extraordinary world. In Mulan, the first act turn is when Mulan first steps into being a man and sucking at it.
I'm working on it.
Also in this scene, the ancestral world collides with the living world. Mushu has come to make Mulan a war hero. How does your first act turn push the world into the extraordinary?
My ancestors sent a little lizard to help me.
For my mash, I will take inspiration from what I think is the strongest first act turn.
Come into the light.
This moment does an incredible job of hitting me in the feels. I'm scared for Belle. I wouldn't exactly say I like the beast, but I will stick around to see what happens next. The midpoint is a direct consequence of the inciting incident. In The Little Mermaid, the midpoint is when Ariel agrees to Ursula's terms to become human.
this poor unfortunate soul.
She does this so she can have a chance at winning the heart of the prince that she saved in the first act turn. Huh! Yes, save someone if you can, but don't give up your voice to find a husband. If the inciting incident didn't play out how it did, with Ariel's dad being such a fish, Ariel might have felt she had more options. So it is a direct consequence of the inciting incident. Is your midpoint? The midpoint can also be an emotional tipping point for the protagonist.
Get out!
No!
Belle flees the castle but is attacked by wolves. The beast then comes to rescue her. The midpoint is when Belle has an opportunity to go home, but instead she decides to return the favour and rescue her captor. The Lion King's midpoint is also an emotional tipping point. Simba has been through the traumatic ordeal of watching his father die, then being exiled by his uncle, then being chased by hyenas to end up alone in the desert. Here, he meets Timon and Pumbaa, who introduce Simba to a new way of thinking.
When the world turns its back on you, you turn your back on the world.
Well, that's not what I was taught.
He adopts this attitude of foregoing responsibility, forgetting the lessons taught by his father.
It means no worries for the rest of your days.
Yeah, say it, kid.
It makes the audience wonder how Simba can come back from this. How can you tip your protagonist's emotions at the midpoint? It might help to think about the midpoint as if the protagonist was stuck on a runaway train and they had no choice but to go on. In Hercules, despite having it handed to him by a monster, Herc must fight to prove himself worthy of the hero status. He completes his first heroic act, an absolute high point for this midpoint. Last I saw, Herc was on a roll. Is your protagonist on a runaway train? I also like to think of the midpoint as the moment when the protagonist is closest to their want and furthest from their need, or vice versa, depending on the genre. In Mulan, the midpoint is a montage where the protagonist transforms into a great warrior. It shows us that Mulan is close to her want of bringing honor to her family by serving in the army, but furthest from her need of honoring herself and who she truly is because she's still pretending to be a dude. How can your midpoint position your protagonist with their want and need? For my MASH, I will take inspiration from what I think is the strongest midpoint. Let's get down to business. Enough said. The all is lost moment is exactly what it sounds like. All is lost. It is a low point that occurs at the end of Act 2, just before the protagonist plunges into Act 3. It usually contributes to the biggest reversal of the movie. Ariel is sent to rock bottom when, unbeknownst to her, Ursula casts a spell on Eric.
Congratulations, my dear.
They are to be married as soon as possible. These events raise the stake for Ariel because she will lose her bargain with Ursula and become one of these. Side note, I want to complain that Ariel does absolutely nothing for an entire day to change the outcome of this. Wouldn't she try and find out more about this mystery woman? Wouldn't she try and get like a private interlude with Eric to find out what's going on? Nah. I mean, Disney really saw women as helpless creatures when they made this movie. I know I'm not saying anything new, but...
That was vile.
How does your low point raise the stakes for your protagonist? In Beauty and the Beast, the all is lost moment occurs when the Beast tells Belle she must go to her father. This is great news for Belle, but for the Beast, well, he's given up his final opportunity to break the spell.
He did what?
Then, when Belle returns home, the all is lostness finds its way to her.
One little word, Belle, that's all it takes.
Never.
Have it your way.
Simba sticks to his new way of thinking in The Lion King despite Nala's plea for help.
You think you can just show up and tell me how to live my life? You don't even know what I've been through.
He does not want to become king. He feels abandoned by his father.
You said you'd always be there for me.
Anyway, I hope you see the pattern. When one bad thing happens, everything else is caving in. It's like saying, things couldn't possibly get worse, and then they do.
It can't get any worse, can it? Obviously it can.
In Hercules, the writers lay it on thick, which is so entertaining. First, Phil abandons Hercules after Hercules refuses to believe his warning about Meg. Then Hercules signs away his godly powers to Hades to protect Meg. Then he finds out Meg has been playing him this whole time. Wow. Can you bring a guy down anymore? No, really. Can you bring your protagonist down just a little bit more? I challenge you. Do it. This can also be the moment when the protagonist thinks they will never, ever, ever, ever achieve their want. In Mulan, she is found out to be a woman and left behind by her captain, wholly dishonored. What is she to do now? Go home with her tail between her legs, probably. Have you taken away every option your protagonist has to achieve their want by this point? For my MASH, I will take inspiration from what I think is the strongest low point. As I said, the writers put Hercules through hell, but not just for kicks. Every knockdown has an emotional purpose.
Without your strength, you'll be killed.
There are worse things.
The climax is the final confrontation with the antagonist. In The Little Mermaid, the climax is the showdown between Ariel and Ursula. Who am I kidding? It's really between Eric and Ursula because women weren't allowed to save themselves in this Disney era. So for this reason, I will express my disgust by moving on. Beauty and the Beast is not much better. There's a showdown between the Beast and Gaston, with Belle being as useless as they thought women were. And then the climax is Belle saying, "I love you," to this dude who imprisoned her. However, the visuals of the Beast turning back into a man are stunning. The climax can also be the moment when the protagonist exploits the antagonist's wound and, in the process, heals their own. In The Lion King, there is a confrontation between Simba and Scar when the truth about Mufasa's death is revealed.
I killed Mufasa.
No! Murderer!
There's the most epic catfight. And then Simba's wound is healed and he can finally take his place on Pride Rock. How can you utilize your character's wounds in this moment? The climax should also be when your protagonist achieves their want and or need. Hercules reclaims his god status when he rescues Meg from Hades.
Goes to Hades.
He achieves his want, but as most Disney movies go, in the resolution he gives up his want to accept his need. Aww.
I finally know where I belong.
Ew. The protagonist should also pull out all the stops to win. In the finale, Mulan enlists the help of her friends to save the Emperor and China. The confrontation comes to a head when Mulan must face the bad guy alone. There's this kick-ass moment when she uses a traditionally feminine tool to defeat him. These writers are genius. Kind of makes up for this. What obstacles or challenges can you put in the protagonist's path so they earn this cathartic moment? For my MASH, I will take inspiration from what I think is the strongest climax.
No, Scar. I'm not like you.
For me, it's because of the compounding twists and turns. That when Simba steps out on that rock, all I want to do is go out into the rain and go... Comment below if you want more Disney related content and subscribe. Until the next MASH, bye! Also, I'm rocking my Belle ball gown at the moment. You can't tell, but yes, I'm in a ball gown. It's so pretty. In Mulan, being by the beefs, babe. The beef. Ah. Simba has been through the what else that? Oh, then being exiled by his uncle and then chased by hyenas. I can't speak.